Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we are back again to do what we love to do best here on this channel. We're going to talk about a Star Trek book. That's right, we have finished up Gemworld, book 2 of 2, the classic, absolute classic by John Vornholt. And I've just now noticed and realized that I don't really like how they did his name down here. I don't know. There's something about the formatting, the off-centeredness about it. It's off-putting to me. I don't like it. Anyway, what I do like is I like this book. I like both of these books. I should say. I don't know if I have book 1 handy or not, but we don't need it. The cover had data on it. But again, Gemworld has been a very fun ride. It is your classic Trek, tale, where an author gets to do something fun that they enjoy. Basically, here's this crazy world. Now, what kind of aliens can we create to inhabit this? And that I think was kind of like the crux of it, and what kind of drove the whole thing was that John Vornholt wanted to write a visit to a weird planet story, and that's a quote right from him there. But before we get too far into it, let's read directly from the book here. What we have is a desperate quest on a planet in turmoil. Sparkling like a three-dimensional snowflake in the depths of space, Gemworld once was the Federation's greatest marvels. Gemworld once was one of the Federation's greatest marvels. 6 different alien races coexisted peacefully on an artificial world composed entirely of crystal, until the very substance of Gemworld began to multiply out of control, tearing the world apart. Now the entire planet and the Starship Enterprise as well faces total destruction. The only way to stop the disaster is to turn off the vast network of force fields holding Gemworld's atmosphere in place. But to do so will require the cooperation of each of the planet's half-dozen alien civilizations, one of which sabotaged Gemworld in the first place. With time running out, Captain Picard and his crew, including a love-struck Lieutenant Barclay, must embark on a hazardous trek across a dying planet to find and unite the chief engineers from many strange and exotic races, while watching out for a mass murderer determined to destroy a world. Whoa, okay, man. They really sell it right there on the back, don't they? So anyway, that's, you can go back and check out the first part if you want to know about Gemworld Part 1. But man, in Part 2, they do very much embrace the kind of like the quest, mentality, which I think was very fun. Where alright, in order to shut down this thing, you have to get the 6 crystal keys, right? It's like something out of like a D&D campaign or something like that, right? So they have to embark upon this quest. And in doing so, of course, they're going to have to visit all these different fantastical species that exist on this planet, and which gives each kind of a time to, kind of like to show off, right? And then to give the author a chance to show off, just their chops in writing these different kind of alien species. So now we held off last time. Reading from the fantastic book about books, Jeff Ayer's Voyages of the Imagination, because the comments for book 1 were basically for book 2. So we'll go ahead and read this now. So now, if you don't know, basically this guy went ahead and reached out to all these different authors and got their comments on their books, their thoughts and stuff. So sometimes you can get some lovely backstory, or sometimes it just gives you a little bit of an idea of what they were thinking when they were writing. Anywho, Mr. Vornholt says, in a Deep Space Nine episode, Dr. Bashir fell in love with Melora, a humanoid female from a planet that has almost no gravity. That intrigued me. Ooh. And I tried to imagine a low-gravity planet that could support humanoids along with other weird species. I'd just written a war story with the Dominion War books. Oh man, those are good books too. read those and then watch my videos on those. And I wanted to do something more fanciful. I also wanted to feature Lieutenant Barclay, one of my favorite characters. You know, I was always a Barclay fan too in Next Generation. You know, I think I talked about this last time, but he always felt like someone I could identify with because everybody was so cool on the Enterprise, right? And like they had it together and they knew what they were doing. And then here comes Barclay, and he's kind of like, you know, he's nervous, he's awkward, and that kind of felt like, you know, maybe I could be on a starship, right? Anyway, also a Barclay fan here. These books went very smoothly, and I really enjoyed all the world building and bizarre aliens I got to invent in this visit to a weird planet story. So there you go. And that kind of lays it out for you too, as far as what this is really about, and that's kind of what it is too. You have this this overarching kind of drama, right, where like it's a countdown. Basically, the planet Gemworld has only, I think, at the end of the last book they said 8 days left, right, and then the basically the issue is, and I guess I'm glossing over it now because we talked about it last time, but there's this giant rift in space, and it is continually, like, basically Gemworld's kind of caught in this loop where it's like sucking energy from this rift, and then the rift is like corrupting the gems and turning them into like dark gems, and then also the radiation is increasing, and you know, at the end of the day, whatever it is, they got 8 days before the planet is done for, right? Now, the Enterprise is currently trapped within the atmosphere of the planet because when it tries to leave, or if it tries to leave, this rift is going to rip it apart. In the last book, Starfleet did try to send a rescue vessel, which failed miserably and was ripped apart and sucked into the rift, right? Just to kind of give you that, you know, that idea that, you know, no, they're not going to leave and they can't leave. They've got to work it out and figure it out right here. So like that tiny bit. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay. So, what are they going to do, right? They have a plan, basically, but this plan is very taboo to the people on the planet. Basically, they have found out that the problem is within the shell of the planet itself. You know, this is the thing that creates the atmosphere and kind of protects everybody. But something has gone wrong. Someone has tampered with it, and now it is in like a feedback loop, basically. So what they have to do is shut it down briefly. You know, shut it down briefly, and then kind of restart it, and then things should be okay. That's like typical, right? You know, when something goes wrong with your technology, that's like the first thing you do. Turn it off, turn it back on again, and it's probably going to be all right, you know. So that's the plan. But the Jepta, who are kind of like the people in charge, the head Alasians, you know, who are kind of running the shell. They view the shell as like their lord, right? This thing can't be shut down. To even think to do so is like ridiculous, you know. So this book starts out with them, you know, they're like, yeah, we're gonna do it. But then Melora, who is, I wonder if we can get a display capture of her, because we talked about doing that last time, but we never actually did. Let's see. We go over here, and we go here. Let me see. We're gonna figure this out. Anyway, just keep listening as I'm talking here. Melora, right? She was the kind of the star of this book, right? But she is unfortunately also with the chief Jepta, Turs Berturnaran. I'm not saying his name right, but Turs Berturnaran. Anyway, here's Melora, right? So if you remember from the episode of Deep Space Nine, this is what an Alasian looks like, and they cannot handle gravity, right? They operate in a low gravity situation. So here in this situation, she has like a wheelchair at first, and then she's given like a suit. But I love that just from this one episode, John Vornholt kind of got the idea drew upon it and then created this, this whole world from that. So anyway, that was Melora. So now you know. But at the beginning of this book, she is kind of revealed to be. My phone's going. It kind of scared me. Anyway, at the beginning of this book, she's kind of revealed to be, not betraying them, but she is also basically saying that no, there's just no way that we can, shut off the shell. So she's kind of in agreement with that too. So now, this book is kind of a lot different from part one too. I think, at least I kind of felt that way, and it kind of follows a different vibe than the other ones had. So, but in the end, it is, like what I said, it is a book which follows, or which features an author who wanted to go ahead and come up with some fun ideas. I guess is a good way to put it, right? So, he initially had this idea. All right, what about this planet? All right, so there's a planet with no gravity. Somehow humanoids have developed on it. What other kind of species could develop on it? So this kind of thing is very fun for me, this kind of thinking too. To think about how he kind of sat down and was developing all these different types of species that we have here. And I do have, I took terrible notes for this too, I have to say. Terrible notes. Blurred. Oh my god. Anyway, I'm going to do much better. It's been it's been kind of a hard time for me to read too. There's been so much going on. And my reading has been just very little in the evenings, right? And that's it. And other than that, I've not had much chance to do much with it. But I do want to talk about the different species that are here, basically, because it is quite interesting. So of course, we all know about the Alasians, right? The Alasians are the humanoid type species, but there are 5 other species on this planet. So there are the Frills, which they're described as kind of like a, I don't know, maybe I'm picturing this wrong or I read it wrong, but kind of almost like a flat, kind of long, 3 meters, 4 meters long, vicious jaws, and they're kind of like a predatory species. And there are the Lipples, and the Lipples are kind of like a jellyfish type species, and they actually live within the gems themselves. There are, what was the other ones called? Anyway, there's another species which is basically a whole bunch of bats that kind of group together to form a thing, there was the Gendli, which was a fungus, right? And is that it? Lazen, Frill, Gendli, Yiltern. Yiltern was the bat-like people. Lazen, Frill, Gendli, Yiltern. It's just fun to say all these names too. And the Alpusta. And the Alpusta were kind of like these long-legged, tentacled things. They would shoot webs, and they would kind of start moving Spider-Man, right? They're like Spider-Man kind of flying around, little Spider-Man aliens. So anyway, you have this very fun collection of these different aliens. And again, that's what is, for me, was one of the funnest parts about this book. And also just the makeup of this world as well. This whole Gemworld, and how these people move around, live their lives and that kind of stuff on this world. That was very interesting too. So a lot going on here. Now, we're not going to do the typical let's rant the whole story off to you, but I will hit onto some of the higher notes. Again, a very fun kind of quest vibe. I like the character, what was the dude's name? Where is it? Shoot. I knew I should have wrote that down too. But anyway, they find a human there on Gemworld, and this guy has been, he's like an adventurer who went there many years ago to kind of check things out. The rest of his crew got destroyed or eaten, by the Frills, I think. And then they kept him around, and he's basically been living there this whole time. And I didn't write down his name, and of course I can't remember it. Oh my god, Keith Nordine. Keith. How could I forget a name like Keith? We're going to write that down right now. Keith Nordine. Interesting little side character that the author put in there. This guy who was kind of stuck there on the planet, and he gives Picard and the crew a little bit of help, you know? So he was a good character. The kind of the antagonist, I guess, and he kind of starts out that way, comes back, goes back that way. That was this Turs Bortanarin. I'm not saying his name. I'm gonna say it different every time. Turs Bortanarin. Anyway, this guy, he was the one who kind of messed things up for everybody by you just basically not listening, right? You should listen when Captain Picard has something to say. They know what they're doing, and he kind of thought he had the right idea. And I have to say, one of the things I thought was kind of odd about the ending of this book, and we'll get there in a minute. First off, let's just briefly go over what happens. The Enterprise wants to, of course, shut down the shell. They don't want that to happen. What they do is they trick the crew of the Enterprise, and they end up zapping them and stunning them, except for the crew that was behind force fields. So you've got a few people still running around, namely Geordi LaForge and the engineering crew. And in one of the funnest parts of this book, they retake the ship using, like, gravity as their weapon to take out these, non-gravity using fools, right? So a very fun little sequence there. And I love that they have these two Binar engineers. And then, as I was reading the Starfleet Corps of Engineers books a little bit ago, there's a couple of Binar engineers in there. So I'm like, dude, these are the same engineers. They gotta be, right? I like that. I like that little sequence there. The ending of the book, I tell you, is a bit strange. They have to get these 6 crystal keys, right? They go through all this trouble, a lot of drama. They're able to get them, right? They get the keys, and this is after Turs Berternarian tries his plan, which is just to shoot a phaser at the stupid rift, right? Because obviously, just shoot it. That's perfect, and that's gonna work. So he tries that. That doesn't work, obviously. And that's when he meets his very undignified end. So at this point, they've taken Melora Pazlar with them to the shell, taken her from the ship, right? They're holding her kind of like hostage because she's not going along with it. But when things go wrong, she busts out, flies towards this dude, rams into him, and then he hits a bulkhead, and in the words of John Vornholt, his head busts open like a melon. Whoa, dude. Okay, all right. So I guess he's done. He's done. That's that. and then get this. He gave them a bum key. So when they try to insert all the keys to shut down the shell, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So you know what they have to do? They have to go and ask Counselor Troy to go into her dream state, and then just very politely ask the Rift to just chill out. Chill out, Mr. Rift. Stop throwing Thoron radiation at us, and just, go back to being what you were. The real deep story of it is that the Rift is like a interdimensional or other dimensional being that Lillipals thousands of years ago stole from to create the other inhabitants of Gemworld. What? I know, right? There's a lot going on there. I'm not even going to get into that. But anyway, at the end of the book, she just politely asks him to please shut off and, chill out. Just go home. Be cool. And he agrees. And end of story. We're done. Poor Barclay, he and Pazlar, they had a thing. They had a fling. But at the end of the day, she has to stay to atone for busting open dude's head like a melon, which I understand. And, they got to go about their business. But, yeah, Gemworld, man, what a ride. Again, a very fun book if you're looking to get into exploring different ideas of like kind of like what could happen, right? Like, here's this weird world. What kind of species can we put there, right? That's what we're looking at. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out as always. Live long and prosper, my friends. We'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good night.